90 days from now, you could own your first rental property, or you could be stuck with thinking about it. The choice is yours. I'm going to give you the exact repeatable steps to stop overanalyzing and start building wealth through real estate. Guys, real estate has been proven to be a wealth building tool. Part of the reason is you buy a piece of real estate, it takes a long time to buy it, it takes a long time to sell it. So you're not jumping in and out of the investment game all the time. You're sitting there month in, month out, running it out, collecting your rent, paying down debt, making improvements, increasing the value, and more importantly, letting inflation take over and drive the value of your property. Remember, I've talked about it all the time. Youngstown, Ohio has lost 18% of its population since 1980, and Dallas has 3x since 1980. Yet their growth rate in real estate is within 0.2% of each other every single year. You can do it anywhere. I don't care where you're at. It provides passive income, long-term appreciation, and a forced savings plan. If done right, you can generate 15 to 20% returns compared to the high single digits of the stock market. And you get tax benefits along the way. One great deal per year can lead to long-term financial freedom. I'm not asking you to go become a mogul. What I'm saying is save up your money, maybe bring a few friends in, some family in, and go buy your first property. Go into it, put some money into it, raise the rents, bring good tenants in, and keep redoing it over and over. I want you to focus on quality, not quantity. Be picky. If you're picky, you're going to find the best deals for you, because we all fall in love so quickly with the first deal. I certainly did. You know what happened? I lost $1 million. So learn that mistake from me. Now, there are multiple ways to do it. Single family, multifamily, 2 or 3. That's the way you have to decide. There are benefits to both. One of the benefits of single family is the value is going to go up along with inflation no matter what the income is. As you add more units, the value is going to be driven more on the rental side, on the income side. But with that said, as you drive the quality of the product and increase the rents, it'll drive that multifamily value much more. Single family homes are much easier to finance and, as a beginner, to manage. They typically attract longer term tenants because they feel like that's their house, but they do have the lower cash flow compared to multifamily because you're starting by buying a home that basically somebody would want to own for themselves. And the exact opposite is true for multifamily. They tend to generate more rental income. They're more complex to manage, but the economies of scale do help a lot. And they do require a larger investment up front. But as you drive the value through your own upgrades, you'll see the value of the multifamily go up even more. Now, people ask, what about Airbnb? What about commercial real estate? Guys, I personally avoid commercial real estate. And the reason being is it's feast or famine. And you can't really do much to the property to really increase rents. Somebody's going to come in and say, I want this for an office. I want you to do this, 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 and this for it. And the market's going to dictate the rent. When it comes to a place to live, people will pay more for better, time and time again. Yes, people will pay more for commercial real estate if it's better, but they're not going to pay double. You can possibly get 30, 40% even more than your neighbors. You're not going to get 30 or 40% more in commercial real estate off of something you do to the property. The other thing is, when the economy sucks, people leave offices, but they still have a place to live. And yes, there have been times when the residential market's taken a hit, but my best deals were bought during the worst times in the economy. Now, for Airbnb, on your first term rental, maybe. I'm here to talk about that. I prefer you learn with a long-term rental first. Learn how to buy it, learn how to finance it, learn how to put a tenant in. Guys, I have Airbnb rentals. I love them. It's a great time, but it's also a lot more work, and you gotta be there for it all the time. So for less work, stick to the long-term rentals. Now, guys, very simple. Revenue minus expenses equals net operating income. Now, guys, here's what's funny. This just happened to me yesterday, and I hope the person who's watching it, if the person I'm talking about is watching this, doesn't get offended. Kid I know wants to buy an apartment building, about 6 units in my city. He lives in New York and works for a major real estate firm. So I said to him, hey, send me your analysis. Guys, he sent me some Excel sheet that was freaking so long and complicated. My first comment back to him over text was, your Excel sheet is 1,000 times more complicated than it needs to be. I said, there's revenue, there's expenses, there's debt, and there's capital improvements. Every investment is the present value of all the cash flow you received. Just factor that in there. He's looking at what percentage of revenue is the profit. No, not necessary. Make it simple. He used our software this morning, and I literally got this text from him this morning, and I will quote him word for word. He said, and I quote, "This tool is awesome." Now, he might have been talking about me being a tool, being awesome, but I think he was talking about the real estate calculator tool was awesome. It takes your information and sits there and says, here's your return. Because guys, at the end of the day, all it is a set of cash flows. Now, cap rate, that's your net income divided by your purchase price. This is one of the more complicated things to understand because as cap rate goes up, price goes down. I could talk to you about this till I'm blue in the face. This is probably not the time for it, but just from a high level for beginners, you should probably be looking somewhere in the 7 or 8% range to start, but it's all based on your net income. And what's net income? As I said, revenue minus expenses. People lie about this all the time. They lie to themselves. They lie to people buying the property. This is what I'm here to teach you. There are real expenses here. Most people buy a property saying, well, my revenue is $1,000 a month and my mortgage is $900 a month, so I net $100 a month. No, your mortgage isn't everything. Even if it has tax and insurance in there, you've got maintenance, you've got advertising costs, you've got utility costs. Even if the tenant pays the utilities, what about when they're vacant? You're going to be vacant a month out of the year. You've got to be able to pay the utilities during that time. There are real costs. Who's going to cut the grass? Are you responsible for it as a tenant? When it's vacant, who cuts the grass? You do. All of these things matter. Another one, cash on cash return. COC. Basically, it's the annual cash flow that you get from the property divided by your down payment. That's why it's cash on cash. Cash you receive divided by the cash you put in. What you paid for it, unless you pay cash, is not your cash in. If you buy a property for $250,000 and you put in $50,000 down payment, this is your down payment. That is your cash. And you make $5,000 in cash flow, your return is cash on cash is $5,000 divided by $50,000. Because this cash flow is after paying your mortgage. That's a 10% return. That's awesome. That would be great for you. And we put all this together in our real estate calculator and it spits out our internal rate of return. Let me show you that right now. This is an example property. Put $62,000 to buy it, the cash flow by year, the value of the property by year, the mortgage balance, all the way down to year 20, and here's our IRR. It does it all for you. So you have this, you have an idea of what you're trying to do. You can see these returns and how it builds wealth. So what makes a property a good deal? Well, for one, undervalued rents. Guys, most landlords don't charge the right rent. They're usually under market. That's why I always tell people, I caution them, don't just go to the market and say, well, the guy next door is getting $1,100, I can get $1,100. Push it a little bit. Be the most expensive property on the street. That's always my goal. That's very counterintuitive. I want to be the Ferrari of that area. I want to be the one who confidently says, my rent's $1,295. Oh, but your neighbor's $1,000. By all means, go rent the neighbor then. We are much better than them. Our quality is better. You can't just say you're better. I want your units to be better. The other thing is, landlords all the time poorly manage properties. They get attached to this cash flow. So one of the things I'm going to tell you is never live off your cash flow. Put your cash flow in a separate account and use it to upgrade your properties and buy more properties. I know you want to replace your income. I get that. But I want you to be fucking rich. And that doesn't happen by spending your cash flow on cars and living and trips and all that stuff. You know why? I've never met a landlord who lived off their income who 20 or 30 years later had great properties. They always end up just putting a tenant in and staying fine with having the low price tenant. You don't want that. And worse yet is when people hire third-party managers. Worst idea ever. If you're going to hire a third-party manager, just don't buy the real estate and flush half your money down the toilet. I have hired and fired 10 or 12 third-party managers in my life. Every fucking time I do it, revenue goes up, expenses go down, and profit skyrockets. Value of my property skyrockets. Now, go find properties that need renovation. Don't go find the sexy properties. The sexy properties are a premium. Go get that premium for you. Go learn how you can do some small upgrades to generate value. Let me ask you a question. What are the most important parts of the property to renovate? Well, go ask your wife or girlfriend. Hey, we're going to look at a place. What we look for? They're going to say kitchens and bathrooms, and they're right. Go spend your money on kitchen and bathrooms. And guys, don't be cheap. Don't put the $19 half round light fixture in. Go spend $100 on a nice light fixture. Go spend $200 on a faucet. Really make that pop. Yes, it's a higher percentage, but it's going to draw the most attention. So where do you find these deals? Well, guys, the internet's wonderful. You don't need a real estate agent anymore. And I love some of my real estate agent friends, but real estate agents are not real estate investing experts. They're salespeople. And at the end of the day, they want the deal to close. Go independent. Go do it on your own. You have Zillow. You have Homes.com. You have access to all of these. You have Craigslist. People are selling deals all the time. Network with other investors. Wholesalers. Wholesalers are another form of shady people. What about property owners? Direct marketing. You see a property on the street that looks crappy, but it has a for rent sign, call it up. Sit there and say, hey, I saw your property you're interested in selling. Yes, 99 out of 100 of them are probably going to say no, but if you find the right one, you can probably make a ton of money. You don't know what people are going to sit there and go, you know what, I've actually been thinking about selling. I'd love to get out of it. These are all great ways to go. And if you want to use a realtor or broker, just promise me one thing. You don't let them guide you on if it's a good deal or not. They have no clue. They might sit there and say they do, but they don't. Go find properties with low rents. If a property is 20% or more below market, that could be a great opportunity. Find distressed ones that are in foreclosure. Like I said, go find ones where the weeds are overgrown. That might need some work there. Landlords are always doing bad things. They're always sucking at property management. And guess what? A lot of landlords are old. Maybe they're retiring, selling them off, offloading properties. This is a great way to find great deals. Now, how do you finance your property? Again, just like realtors, all banks are whores. Go find the best deal for you, but put 10, 20, 30%, as much as you can down to the first deal. Not for much for the future. Don't pay cash, but go find yourself a good bank that'll give you a loan. They're probably going to sell you a 30-year fixed mortgage. That might be okay. I personally like 7 or 10-year fixed that are amortized over 30 years. That allows me an opportunity to go build up value and 7 or 10 years from now, refinance with a new mortgage. I'm okay having a mortgage. You might sit there and say, no, Paul, I want to pay this thing off. Won't get into that right now. But there are great opportunities out there. There are FHA loans. FHA allows you to put 3 or 3.5% down. There are some rules attached. You can only have 2 FHA loans at any given time. So what's most important there is you buy the property, you renovate it, you increase the value, and then you put a normal bank loan on it so you can go do another FHA loan. Hopefully the increase in value will be enough of the down payment you need so you don't have to come out of pocket for more money. And of course, guys, there's seller financing. Ask the seller if they're willing to be part of the deal. It's especially useful when banks require a higher down payment. You can pitch it as, guys, you know what? You can make some extra money on the side on this thing. It's a very attractive way for sellers to make some more money. We've done it when selling properties. We've said to people, hey, listen, if you give us the right price, we'll finance it for you, or a big chunk of it. Now, how do you get the money? Guys, getting $50,000 is hard. It's not easy. But it's easy when you have friends and family. There are people out there who trust you. Figure out how you want to do it and start raising money from those friends and family. If they want to partner with you, just make sure there are clear and defined roles and responsibilities and everybody's paid appropriately for their work. But try to do it just on your own and don't ask for a ton of money. Don't ask one family member for $100,000. Go to 10 friends and say, hey, let's all put $5,000 in together. That's how you get $50,000 together. Because guess what? At the end of the day, everybody can save $5,000 extra if they lose it. And they're probably not going to lose it, but it happens. But one thing I will say is avoid hard money loans. They can be good. They can provide a lot of opportunity. There are some rates upwards of 18%. And it can get a little scary as you're trying to make that payment every single month. I'd only do those for quick flips, not long-term rentals. Now, some big mistakes I want you to avoid, guys, is don't fall in love with the property. Real estate's a numbers game. It's not an emotional decision. You're going to buy revenue and profit. I want you to analyze at least 100 properties. I want you to make 10 offers and buy one great deal. And if a lot of people accept those 10 offers, you're offering too much money. You want to be told no 70, 80% of the time. But hopefully you get some counter offers and you're able to get one great deal. That's what I want you to do. Get one great deal. Don't overpay because of the hype. Understand what the market rents are and the cap rates are. Don't sit there and find a deal, analyze it, and when you realize you're close, you're trying to pay a little bit more to get the deal done. That's your way of basically following the hype. Don't do that. You'll end up just making bad decisions. You have to be disciplined, saying no. And the more deals you look at, the more offers you make, the more times you're told no, the easier it will be. You'd be surprised how many people come back to you. Do me a favor, guys. When you walk the property, if the owner or other agent's there, talk about how much you love the property. That's something I do different than everybody else. Everybody else sits there and they go in a car dealership and say, oh, I hate this car. No, I go in and go, God, I love this car. I love this property. I want this property so bad. You know why? Because when they feel like they have it right there, they know they can get a deal done and they see you walk away. That's them going, shoot, I lost this person. If I don't like the property, I'll say this property sucks. I'll say, hey, listen, I can fall in love with this property at the right price, but I don't want this property. A lot of people, as they're analyzing the property, they do what I said before. They don't factor in the right expenses, property management, maintenance, vacancy, etc. Make sure you do that. That's really important. As you watch more videos on this channel, you're going to learn more about that. You're going to learn more about avoiding third-party managers. Their goal is only to keep the property full. They don't want to raise rent and provide more work for themselves. They make more money by keeping the property full. You might sit there and say, why is that a bad thing? Because you're not raising rents like you should. We reward our managers for raising rents. That's what we want. We look at financial occupancy, not physical occupancy. What does that mean? Let me show you. If you have a property that has 10 units and the average rent's $1,000 a month, property next door is 10 units. The average rent is $200 a month. They're the exact same building. This one's 100% full. This one's 90% full. They're collecting 100% of $1,000. That's $1,000. They're collecting 90% of $1,280. That's $1,080. Which one would you rather have? I'd rather have this one. The other reason is higher rent means better tenant, less maintenance, less stress, and less work. Which would you rather have? More revenue with less stress, less maintenance, and better tenants, or less revenue with all of those problems? I think you know the difference. Guys, these are the high-level items, but I've told you a lot about owning real estate. But at the end of the day, going and actually doing the deal is very important. So you need to find what your investment criteria are. Remember, location is bullshit. It's all a bunch of crap. People then end up overpaying for location. If the property already exists, all the good and bad of the area is factored into the property. From a rent standpoint, you're trying to find deals in which you have a little bit better information. Start analyzing deals daily. Literally pull up Zillow, start analyzing deals, and make offers immediately. But make sure you're making offers that are so insulting they're telling you no, but don't be disrespectful about it. Just say, listen, I'm new, I'm gonna make mistakes, I just don't wanna overpay. And if the realtor tells you you're not overpaying, say to them, oh, great, so are you willing to escrow money where if I do overpay, you'll pay for it? And they'll say, well, of course not. Well, then I'll let you handle that analysis. That's the point to get across. Then once you have the deal secured, find your financing and negotiate the best terms for you. Guys, you have to be patient. You have to be picky. You have to focus on finding one great rental property per year. And I assure you, if you're able to invest $25,000 a year in a property that makes 15% returns, at 25 grand, 30 years from now, you'll be worth $10.8 million. That's not $10.8 million worth of real estate. That's $10.8 million worth of equity in your real estate. If you repeat this process consistently, you will achieve the financial freedom much faster than you think. It will snowball from there. So guys, if you want to learn more about us and get more of our information, join our email list. It'll be a great way to get updates on what we're doing with new videos, and it'll make you a better real estate investor. Thank you for your time.